This is Ring of Fire with Sam Cedar.
800-783-7412. We would take your calls coming up later in the hour, of course. We've been talking about the situation in Iraq over the past couple of days, as well as talking about those people who are talking about the war and those who led us into that first war. We will not be having any of those people on this program. But it is my pleasure to welcome to the program Professor Juan Cole, professor at the University of Michigan, also the blogger at Informed Comment at juancole.com. Welcome to the program, Professor.
Hey, it's great to be on, Sam.
So let's. I want to straighten some. You have a great piece up on the 7 myths about the radical Sunni advance in Iraq. Tell us. Let's break that down, and then there's a couple other questions I have about the situation there. But first off, the notion that the Sunni radicals of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, sometimes they're known as ISIL, are popular amongst the Sunnis that they are coming into contact in that portion of Iraq. You're right, that's a myth. Explain, please.
Well, there are people who do social science of Iraqi Sunnis, and they find that they're predominantly secular-minded people. ISIS is a radical fundamentalist group, and they're not what people are looking for. And I think to the extent that they have gained some support, it's an alliance of convenience against a government that people find to be even more alien and oppressive.
I mean, is that one of the? I mean, should we be surprised on that level? I mean, because my understanding is that ISIS was the sort of former, I guess, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, which broke off from Al-Qaeda. I don't know. I guess the parent Al-Qaeda, because this group of people basically felt that that other Sunni Muslims who were not religious enough were also legitimate targets. I mean, so if that's the case, and please correct me if I'm wrong on that, this really is indicative of just how oppressive the Maliki government was when it comes to Sunnis. Do I have that right?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, the Sunnis of Mosul are, it's a big city of 2 million. They're cosmopolitan people. They wouldn't willingly choose a radical fundamentalist movement like this to rule them. But, the alternative for them is to be dominated by Shiite troops of a different branch of their faith, to be humiliated, to suffer high unemployment, lack of social services, lack of city services, and to be politically marginalized. And people in northern and western Iraq had been very important to the country, and the Ba'ath government had been people of capacity, had been the officer corps and the big businessmen and the high government bureaucrats. And they're not going to be, to put up with being treated like janitors or worse, homeless.
And so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that seems so. With that being the case, and I imagine if that is the case, that the Sunni population is not necessarily even looking for ISIS to be in control, but they are looking for basically a way to reassert themselves so that they have some measure of autonomy. And how does that fly in the face of reports that supposedly ISIS would, send a message that, hey, we're coming to town. We don't want to kill everybody, so just lay down your arms. I mean, what do we know about whether or not the Iraqi army just melted away, and what do we know about ISIS fighters, sort of winning victory after victory?
Well, I just don't think that that it's a matter of them winning victory after victory. I don't believe that they are a conventional military force of that sort. They're a guerrilla group, and these cities like Mosul and some others had an urban uprising. I mean, there's video on the web of townspeople throwing stones at Iraqi soldiers and chasing them away. I think, even if you have a few thousand soldiers in a city of 2 million, if the 2 million really don't want you there, then your life is in danger. They'll just pull you into a back alley and slit your throat. And so when the urban uprising began, and it was coordinated between ISIS and the Ba'ath Party and other Sunni insurgent groups, the military melted away because I think they were in danger of being massacred.
And so, I mean, do you think that we are, or it is being characterized properly in the media as this is about ISIS as much as, I mean, the way that you're describing it, it seems like we're seeing a broader revolt where ISIS is providing maybe sort of the tip of the spear, as it were, but there's something sort of broader and deeper going on here.
Yes, I think that's a very eloquent way of putting it.
And so what do you think the chances are of ISIS being able to move into Baghdad? And then, I guess, conversely, what are the chances of the Maliki forces actually taking back these cities, I guess, Tikrit and Mosul and maybe Fallujah and Tal Afar, that are controlled, I guess, ostensibly by ISIS, but it seems also, in some respects, by the locals.
Right. Well, with the exception of Tal Afar, because I think that ISIS would have amounted to nothing and would have achieved nothing had it not had popular support, I don't believe it's plausible that they can do much in Baghdad. Baghdad has been largely ethnically cleansed of its Sunnis. They're maybe 20% of the population now, and would risk further ethnic cleansing were they to attempt a rising. And the idea of a few thousand guerrillas defeating not only the Iraqi army, which is clustered around Baghdad, but also all of those Shiite militias, it just seems to me implausible. I don't worry very much about ISIS taking Baghdad.
Well, let me just. I want to get the sort of the converse here, but I mean, so is ISIS just posturing? I mean, or they must know. I mean, they must understand this dynamic as well as anyone. Are they just posturing, or what is their? What do you get the sense is their plan?
Well, Sam, Iraq is the Bermuda Triangle of reason and rationality. And for reasons I can't entirely explain to you, neither U.S. government officials nor Iraqis themselves seem to have a firm grasp of social statistics. So, in fact, Sunni Iraqis have shouted at me when I have pointed out that they're roughly 18% of the population. They don't believe it. They think they're a majority. And so it's entirely possible that the ISIS leaders don't realize that they would be made mincemeat of in Baghdad.
Wow, that is fascinating, and I guess we'll have a sense. Do we know how many ISIS forces? I mean, how many people are we talking about?
Oh, just a few thousand, 5,000 to 6,000 people.
I mean, it's really stunning because we're talking about an Iraqi army that is theoretically a multiple of what of that? I mean, how many Iraqi, I guess, army regulars exist supposedly?
Well, supposedly tens of thousands, but it's not like that. A lot of these guys refuse to serve outside their home territory, or are so unenthusiastic about doing so that, as we saw in Mosul, they'll just run away. So the victories in the north are not about military superiority. They're in my view, they're political, and they have to do with the predominantly Shiite coloration of the army, so that these guys were stationed in alien territory. To the extent that there were Sunnis in the security forces, they were accused of being collaborators with the Maliki government, which was seen as Iran.
I need to take a break here, but if you can hang with us, I want to ask you about the chances of the Maliki government taking back some of this territory, and also reports I have heard out of Kurdistan involving Turkey. We'll be right back after this with Professor Juan Cole. Sam Singer, Ring of Fire. We will take your calls in the next segment at 800-783-7412 on the phone. Professor Juan Cole. You can check out his writing at informedcomment@juancole.com. Professor, before the break, you were putting into context the ISIS forces in Iraq. I want to get a sense of just when Maliki claims that the Iraqi forces will take back the cities that ISIS supposedly, ostensibly have taken over. Your take on it is that it was as much a popular uprising as anything else. Is that possible that Iraq will gain control of those cities?
Well, it would involve very hard fighting, but it's not impossible that the Iraqi military can reassert itself up there. In 2008, the Mahdi militia Shiite fighters had taken over the southern port city of Basra, and one of the first decisive things that Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki did in spring of 2008 was to send the new Iraqi army down there to Basra and take on the militias, and they did that, and they defeated them. They did have U.S. logistical support and close air support, but if they did that to the Mahdi militia in the Mahdi army in Basra, then theoretically they could perhaps assert themselves in the Sunni north. But remember that the local population would be hostile. There'd be a lot of guerrilla attacks. It would be a difficult project, and also might involve killing so many Sunnis that it would be a Pyrrhic victory.
And so, I mean, there was a report out today, and it was in the Kurdish press, but I'm starting to hear more of this, that Turkish officials have given their blessing for an independent Kurdistan. Have you heard anything to that effect? And is that something that you anticipate happening? Your thoughts on that?
Well, it is quite remarkable. What the ruling party spokesman seems to have said was that the Iraqi Kurds would have to decide their own destiny, and he seemed to be removing the long-standing vigorous objection of Turkey to the development of an independent Iraqi Kurdistan. I think maybe the Turks are beginning to make peace with reality. The fact is that Kurdistan exists. It's the Taiwan of the Middle East. It's a real country. It has its own army. When you arrive in Erbil at the airport and you get your visa, they stamp it Kurdistan, not Iraq. and there are no Iraqi troops up there, and no prospect of there ever being any. So, and then because of this crisis, the Kurds have taken over the disputed province of Kirkuk, an oil province. They've done a 50-year oil deal with Turkey, and Turkey has 70% of all the investment in Iraqi Kurdistan is from Turkey. So it may well be that the Turks are just deciding that A, there's going to be a Kurdistan and we might as well get used to it, and B, the Kurdistan may well emerge as a bulwark against al-Qaeda influence in eastern Turkey.
All right, well, we just have about a minute and a half left. I mean, so give me your sense. Are we going to see basically a three-way split of Iraq when all of this is said and done? Is that what you anticipate is the likely outcome, or are we already there?
Well, there's already a two-way split. Kurdistan is gone. I don't think it's coming back. Its participation in Iraq is kind of a fig leaf. But whether the Sunni Arabs and the Shiite Arabs can maintain some semblance of a rump Arab state is what's in question. And that depends very much on whether the central government is canny enough to reach out to the Sunnis and try to mollify them and bring them into the system, maybe with a national unity government, and whether the Iraqi armed forces are strong enough to take on and defeat the ISIS.
All right, well, we will be watching this with, obviously, well, I guess with the rest of the world. Professor Juan Cole, thanks so much for sharing your expertise on this. Always a pleasure.
Likewise, Sam.
All right, folks, take your calls. Coming up next, 800-783-7412. We've got some callers on the line. Hang in there. We will get to you, I promise. We'll also talk about this just bizarre conference at the Heritage Foundation yesterday. Sam Cedar, Ring of Fire Radio, number's 800-783-7412. Joe in Phoenix, welcome to the program, Joe. Joe, are you there? Joe does not appear to be there. Let's go to John in San Antonio. Welcome to the program, John.
Yeah, it's great to hear you, Sam. I always enjoyed your Majority Report show, called in many times, so it's great to hear you now doing the Ring of Fire. I want to talk to you about it.
Now, when you say the Majority Report, you're talking about the old one, right, on Air America, not the podcast I do every day.
Well, I mean, I listen to both of them. I listen to the old show, and I listen to the podcast every day also. So,
oh, great.
Anyway, so
really,
I want to talk about this post by Patient John on Daily Kos called Greg Abbott and the Texas GOP Plan to Bankrupt Every Texas City, Town, and Village. It says, many politicians love politicking. Very few are good at civics anymore. The departure from reality cannot be highlighted more by the Texas GOP demanding the elimination of property taxes, which was included in their Texas Party platform. Texas does not have a state income tax. So, Greg Abbott, if we eliminate property taxes, how would we require changing the Texas Constitution? How does the GOP plan for local governments to pay for the police, for the fire department, for the schools, for the roads, for the hospitals, the countless other vital programs, which is the very purpose of government? How do you, Mr. Abbott, plan to pay for local government's bill for basic civil services, that we eliminate the very income stream that pays for them? Where would this magical money come from? If Greg...
Oh, John, I know where it will come from. It's a la carte, man. That's the way it's going to be done in Texas. All going to be free market. You want police to come to your house? You just pay a membership fee. And then if you want the fire department to come, you pay another membership fee. And if you want there to be schools and roads, you pay another membership fee. And then if you want there to be garbage pickup, you pay a membership fee. If you want there to be all sorts of infrastructure and clean water and clean food, you pay another membership fee. And then in the end, what you're doing is you're paying taxes. I mean, these people are such jokers, right? I mean, honestly, it's just absurd. They just float this out there because they know the people. I mean, particularly with all due respect, I know you're calling from San Antonio, but the Republicans in Texas are particularly dense Republican species. I mean, let's be honest. And you know, I don't want to offend Texas in any way. I know those are fighting words, and I know what is it, don't mess with Texas. But, I mean, that's just the reality. There's nothing. Let me put it this way. The Texas Republican Party is Exhibit A, and reason number one, the Republican Party does not want states to come up with their own platforms because these people are insane. And you, obviously, John, you must know that. You live in San Antonio, and, you know, all I can say is bless your heart.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, that's personified by the latest Texas Tribune poll, leading all Republican candidates. Ted Cruz at 33%. Second, Rand Paul at 9%. So that just shows you how absolutely insane the Republicans are here. I mean,
yeah, well, poor Rick Perry. He's going to have to go out and slag gay people even more if he wants to register on that poll, I guess. I appreciate the call, John. And, you know, in Texas, do I want to get to this right now? Because I'm just so stunned at the neocons that are showing up on it. I'll talk about this Texas thing probably later. Because, I mean, I'll tell you something. I am beside myself. No matter where you turn on the TV, it's like 2002, 2003 all over again. Although I have to say that I think part of the reason why we are seeing, and I know Hillary Clinton is now being interviewed on CNN, which, of course, is the reason why President Obama just tried to distract us all by capturing one of the Benghazi perpetrators. But it's like watching 2002, 2003 all over again. But there is a quality, I have to say, that is somewhat encouraging to me, because you do get the sense that the media outlets that are having them on are hoping that they're just going to go viral, right? I mean, they know on some level, like, this is just the epitome of ridiculousness, that we would have the architects of this disaster on television and not shun them publicly. But at the same time, they also basically are asking them to repent, and of course they never are. But here is Chris Cuomo trying to get Paul Wolfowitz. He's working his way there to get him to just say, like, yeah, we effed up. I'm going to go. This is going to be the last time I'm on TV, and walk off. Here's clip number 6.
Speaker Boehner says President Obama is taking a nap as Mosul falls because he pulled us out of there and it's a mistake. Now, isn't it fair, Mr. Wolfowitz, that if the president were taking a nap, it would be on the SOFA, the Status of Arms Agreement, you know, that's the acronym for it, the SOFA, that the Bush administration put in place there, taking troops out?
I thought you were saying we should talk about... Chris, by the way, I'm not the architect of the war. If I were the architect, it would have been handled very differently. But, you know, you say we should be talking about what needs to be done, and you're going back into this discussion of who's blaming whom. Look, we are in a very urgent emergency situation. To portray it as some obscure thing between Shia and Sunni that Americans couldn't tell you which is which, is missing. The real problem is this is Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda-affiliated groups. Some of them are worse than Al-Qaeda. They've already made it clear their intent to attack the U.S. and Europe. They've been recruiting fighters to do that in the U.S. and Europe, and we have got to beat them.
Come with me, and you'll be in a
There's Paul Wolfowitz, just living in a cotton candy world, right? I'm not gonna be responsible for any of this. Oh, if I was the architect of the, I'll tell you something, it would be very different. We would have really, first thing we would have done is I would have outfitted every single military personnel with a huge wicker basket from which they could carry home all the flowers and candy they would have received. That was one of the problems, Chris. This is the other thing I've noticed that these people are doing. They're going on there saying, it's not right to blame. Let's not look backwards. It's not right to blame President Obama. It's not right to blame President Bush. That's how you know. I saw John Bolton do this on like a Fox Business show. When you see these guys say, we're not going to blame anybody, what they're really saying is, we can't possibly talk about blame. Because then how is it possible I'd be sitting here talking to you and not being, in some type of restraining device in the town square? How would it be that I wouldn't be sort of tied down and have people write all sorts of stuff on my forehead with magic marker? If there was any, if we talk about blame, I'm gonna be required to wear a dunce cap whenever I leave my house. It's gonna be the opposite of house arrest. No bracelets around my ankles, but I'm just gonna have to wear a dunce cap. And so Cuomo, knowing, I guess after his sofa joke didn't fly so well. So Cuomo comes back and wants some of that contrition. This is number 10.
The contrition, if you want to use that word, where is the Bush administration saying we got it wrong? There's a bunch of defenders coming out saying we had to go in, Saddam Hussein was horrible, we did the right thing, this administration screwed it up. I think that's not only misleading, but it's counterproductive, because now you can't put forward a unified front.
You could put forward a unified front if you had a unified position, and that is what we need. And that position has got to demonstrate, number one, to everyone in the region that we are serious.
If I could reach through this microphone into that TV and place my hands on Paul Wolfowitz, we've got to get serious? What the frick does that mean? What does that mean? Chris, we were not serious enough. All we did was kill 100,000 plus people. We got to get serious. When I mean serious, I mean let's kill hundreds of thousands more. We have to show the world that we have the muscle. I'm sorry, at one point you just got to cut these people's mics. I really think that, the other thing I think that maybe that should be done is, you can have these people on, but you have to basically put just a picture of them up. Like, you can't actually show them talking. You just hear their voices and maybe do like that thing where you animate their lips so that they're just like a cartoon figure. I don't know. If you have a better idea, give me a call, 800-783-7412. 800-783-7412. Sam Cedar, Ring of Fire. Sam Cedar, Ring of Fire. 51 past the hour, 800-783-7412. Let's go to Will in Mississippi. Welcome to Ring of Fire, Will.
Hey, Sam. I know how this is different from 2002.
Please do tell.
Well, you and Janine aren't on my TV machine being completely right. I admit, I really just want to watch you on another panel with Tom Friedman where you say the line.
Where I tell him, where I just say the word suck on this so he can hear it and know that there are people out there who remember he said it. I mean, you know, look, it is so shocking to me that the media can't find somebody else to talk about with this. It is, and, you know, frankly, even if we weren't in this situation, we know that Iraq was a disaster. We know that it's killed. Literally, I mean, these are Defense Department numbers, at least 100,000 innocent civilians. These are Defense Department numbers. And I don't think they're in the business of overcounting. It is so I mean, you must understand. I can barely even talk. I'm so upset about this.
It makes me so angry. People were completely wrong about everything, and everyone treats them like they're geniuses.
Yeah, it's stunning. I guess maybe we just have an incredibly lazy media. Or, you know, I mean, look, this is a dynamic, and I appreciate the call, Will. This is a dynamic that we see across the board in our society. It's just that one would think that there'd be an exception to this dynamic in this one circumstance. How many people have to die before you just, I don't know, exercise your own shame? It really is just, I mean, I just don't know that as a human being that I can access, and I would imagine this is true of most human beings, that we just don't have the pathology that must be involved in a guy like Paul Wolfowitz or Bolton or John McCain for that matter, and just put themselves out there in public. Like, I get it. Okay, you're embarrassed. You caused an incredible amount of death and destruction, and it's just too overwhelming. You can't go on TV and talk about it. But to run out there, I don't know. I just don't have that level of pathology. I mean, I have pathology. Don't get me wrong. Just not that level. Len in New York, you're on Ring of Fire Radio, 800-783-7412. What's on your mind?
Oh, great to hear your voice. I used to listen to you on Air America. I made the joke you were replaced by a guy who had all the vocabulary to call himself the idiot he was. But, you know, it's a nauseating situation. It's as though they have such a narrow Rolodex. You wonder how they stay, you know, like these spokesmodels. They have 10 or 11 Republicans on and one Democrat on Sunday morning TV now. And, you know, Tim Russert left the brand that seemed indestructible. And David Gregory is so insignificant now. I think he's been canceled 4 times this year for sports events on Sunday morning. You know, it's just the degradation of the media is nearly complete.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I mean, you know, with all due respect to Tim Russert, this guy wasn't so hard-charging himself, in my estimation. His job was just to sort of allow, basically, politicians to go on record. Well, we could also just let them do press releases. With that said, I think David Gregory has taken it to another sort of like a plateau. It's a significantly lower plateau, and he's not doing as well. And part of that may be just the sort of the breakup of the media in and of itself. But I mean, look, you know, I think the clue was when Paul Wolfowitz went to that. We got to show people that we're serious. There's still that mentality amongst the media elite that, you know, unless you really.
That's the problem. They're just allowed to talk. It's the fact that they're even brought on. Like, why is this guy brought on? Not Barney Frank or what's that guy's name? That senator from Vermont that guy who they don't...
Bernie Sanders, yes.
Of course, that's his name. But they discount the possibility that he could actually run for president, to such a degree that they don't even give him a voice. And these are the guys, like, well, you were right then. What do you think we should do now? That's
right.
the simple line that should. Well, you were right then. What do you think we should do now? It would be nice
Len,
to have
you're
half a dozen of those one after the other.
You're absolutely right. I appreciate the call, and thanks for checking in with me. I mean, look, this is there is a problem in the media that you are not considered serious. You're not considered a serious policy thinker unless you have the ability to call for, essentially, the deaths of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and do so in a concerned but rather glib way. And you're not considered serious as a domestic policy person unless you could talk about cutting support for either the poor, the elderly, or the infirm. And, of course, you got to furrow your brow. We have to remind everybody, we've got to be serious. We've got to cut Social Security benefits. We've got to cut food stamps. We've got to cut extended unemployment benefits. We've got to get serious. We've got to show them in the Middle East that we're serious, which would involve dropping bombs and me going about my business in exactly the same way, except for I do a little more television. That's what it is to be serious amongst our policy elite and apparently the media. We'll talk about it more tomorrow. Until then, have a good one.